Hi, my lovely friends. In a world where they claim there are only 7 unique plot lines in every book across the entire world, a lot of new authors get concerned about how they can make their story unique. And I have a one-word answer, and that word is characters. If you want to learn how you can make your story truly unique, then buckle in. This won't take long. It There are a lot of plot lines that are overused, and I can say that as my main genre is romance. Admittedly, I write romance, but honestly, the same applies to all mainstream romance. There is always a variation of boy meets girl, boy falls out with girl, girl falls out with them, whatever. There's usually some form of misunderstanding, and then boom, for some reason, they get together again at the end. I'm perhaps a little bit different in that I write fated mate story. And of course, in a fated mate story, you have two individuals that are wandering along, minding their own business and living their own life. And then bam, all of a sudden, they meet up with each other and suddenly their world has changed. But that concept, there are millions, and I mean millions of books written with that plot line. And I should know I've written about 134 of them. I'm not exactly sure of the right number, but to date, I've written about 134 of them myself. The thing is what makes these situations unique, or what makes these stories unique, and what brings readers back time and time again to read their favorite romances or their favorite stories or their favorite mystery or their favorite whodunit or their favorite sci-fi or whatever else, is because of the characters. It is your characters that make your story unique. I was trying to think of some examples. I have a basic list of my books here. It's pages long. I do need the font a little large so I can read it. But when I think about it, for example, in my first ever book, The Reluctant Wolf, we had two wolf shifters, one called Cain, one called Sean. And, Cain, of course, is tall, dark, and handsome, has flowing long hair. He had black hair with red highlights, I believe it was. And he worked as a mechanic. He owned his own custom biker shop. And then we have Sean, who's also tall and slim with long dark hair. And he happens to have mage abilities on top of being a wolf, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The thing is that those general guidelines, you could probably sit there if you're a reader in my genre and think, oh, well, that sounds like such and such. And that sounds like such and such. And that sounds like such and such. Like on the outside, the characters that I write look like anybody else's. And, with good reason. You want to write characters that readers will relate to. So the key to making the stories unique, and every one of these, I will sit down and count them all one day, but every one of these has a complete set of unique characters. Even in one situation, in my Cloverly book, my Cloverly Pack series, I have twins, and they each have their own book, but they look completely identical. But how they responded to different situations and how their mating went, because they were fated mate stories, were totally different from each other. And that was even in twins. So there we go. So how do you do that? How do you make your characters unique and individual? A couple of hints on doing this, and don't overuse it, but a couple of hints in doing this is, the first thing is that your character has to have something wrong with them. Now, I'm not talking life and death and that sort of thing. I'm talking about a flaw or an annoying habit or a concern that they might have, or maybe they just don't get the picture sometimes. there needs to be something, maybe they're forever leaving their towels, their wet towels on the bathroom floor, or maybe they're, they no, I can't say that one. But anyway, yeah, maybe they do something, and you can look around at the people in your own life and see different examples of those little pet peeves that annoy you. Now imagine if that was the situation in one of your characters, where they had a fated mate, and that fated mate had to not be annoyed by those annoying little differences. There could be other things. I mean, maybe somebody has difficulty, making friends. They could look tall, dark, and handsome. And I'm just using that as a euphemism because, particularly in the romance genre, that's basically it. They're all tall, buff, and look amazing. But the thing is that if they don't have some unique element, well, then you're just cookie cutter writing. So we're talking about making your characters unique. We could have, if we come out of the romance genre, because again, some people will say, oh, well, I don't even write romance, so this doesn't apply to me. I'm writing about a wonderfully middle-aged librarian in a small town who solves murders on the side. And how many different authors can you think of, as I mentioned, that have done exactly that same thing? So that they are all different. Each one of those middle-aged librarians each had different character ploys. Maybe one of them liked crochet. Maybe one of them was estranged from their grandchildren. Maybe one of them liked to bake cookies at 2 o'clock in the morning because they couldn't sleep. It doesn't matter. But it's all these little elements that make your character, your depiction of a middle-aged librarian who solves murders on the side, unique and different. Can you see how that will work? And you might be saying to me, but Lisa, the fact that they bake cookies at 2 o'clock in the morning because they can't sleep, how is that helping, further the plot of the story? Well, excuse me, I don't even write those type of stories. And I'm immediately thinking to myself, now we see what would happen is that she'd be baking and doing a rolling thingies with her, what have you. And you'd be describing this in your scene. And then she has this amazing idea and she just comes across and it's like, oh, yeah, no. And there'll be something. Maybe it'll be in a smell, or maybe it'll be in a beep that comes from the oven being preheated, or maybe it'll be something like that that'll suddenly trigger something that she'll remember that will relate to the plot. And see, so then that baking was important. That baking worked. So that's how you can use these different things. Maybe the person who's getting annoyed at, let's go back to our wet towel analogy thing and say to ourselves, oh, okay, well, this particular person has been told off because they've left their wet towels on the floor again. So they go off for a walk by themselves because they're trying to work out what it is they can do because they don't like it that their significant other is upset with them. And then, boom, maybe they bump into another person and that causes a plot change or a plot twist or whatever else. It's the same with what if one of your characters has got a dog that farts at inopportune moments? I mean, I'm really, okay, I'm probably going from the sublime to the ridiculous here, but you see what I mean? You can have so many different ways that you can make your character unique, and that is what makes them memorable. That is what makes it, even if you are writing one of the 7 main plot lines that there apparently are in the world, your story is still going to stand out because you've written incredible characters who have got these unique differences that people can relate to. And that is the key to having your readers want to pick up not only this book, but the next one and the next one and the next one. So if you have been writing and you're not sure if your characters quite got it, go back and fit in a little quirk or something that makes them relatable. And in that way, you'll always know that you're not copying anybody else and that your stories are truly unique. I hope that helped. I post long content on Mondays and Thursdays, and if you have any questions at all, please drop them in the comments below, because I answer every one of them, and it truly helps the algorithm. So if you'd like to tickle the like button, or maybe run your little finger across the subscribe button, that would also be awesome. But in the meantime, please know that I'm here for you on your writing journey. I genuinely want to see what you come up with, and I can't wait to read your next book. So let's follow along. And until the next video, please keep writing, my friends. Bye.